Psalm 75. Once we get this one done, we'll be halfway through the Psalms. For the director of music, to the tune of Do Not Destroy, the Psalm of Asaph, a song. We give thanks to you, O God. We give thanks, for your name is near. Men tell of your wonderful deeds. You say, I choose the appointed time. It is I who judge uprightly. When the earth and all its people quake, it is I who hold its pillars firm. Selah. There's a reference again to the pillars of the earth. Another insight into the way they saw the world. They saw the world as a flat disk of land surrounded by water and underneath and surrounded by mountains. Okay, there's water all around, and then the outer edges of this land were mountains. And underneath these mountains were pillars that held up the land. We see a number of references to the foundations of the earth, or the pillars of the earth, in the Psalms, and there's another one. To the arrogant I say, boast no more, and to the wicked, do not lift up your horns. Do not lift your horns against heaven. Do not speak with outstretched neck. No one from the east or the west or from the desert can exalt a man, but it is God who judges. He brings one down, he exalts another. In the hand of the Lord is a cup, full of foaming wine mixed with spices. He pours it out, and all the wicked of the earth drink it down to its very dregs. As for me, I will declare this forever. I will sing praise to the God of Jacob. I will cut off the horns of all the wicked, but the horns of the righteous will be lifted up. This appears to be something of a response to the previous psalm, doesn't it? Psalm 76. Okay, we're in the back half of the Psalms now. There's 150 of these, so that's 75 times 2. So we finished the first 75, and I've got 75 more to go. Psalm 76. For the director of music, with stringed instruments, a psalm of Asaph, a song. In Judah, God is known. His name is great in Israel. His tent is in Salem, that's Jerusalem. His dwelling place in Zion. There he broke the flaming arrows, or the flashing arrows, the shields and the swords, the weapons of war. Selah. You are resplendent with light, more majestic than mountains rich with game. Valiant men lie plundered. They sleep their last sleep. Not one of the warriors can lift his hands. At your rebuke, O God of Jacob, both horse and chariot lie still. You alone are to be feared. Who can stand before you when you are angry? From heaven you pronounced judgment, and the land feared and was quiet. When you, O God, rose up to judge, to save all the afflicted of the land. Selah. Surely your wrath against men brings you praise, and the survivors of your wrath are restrained. Let's see here. There's a footnote down here saying, surely the wrath of men brings you praise, and with the remainder of your wrath you arm yourself. Make vows to the Lord your God and fulfill them. Let all the neighboring lands bring gifts to the one to be feared. He breaks the spirit of rulers. He is feared by the kings of the earth. Those two psalms appear to be an answer to the question posed in the previous psalms, don't they? They sure seem like it to me. Psalm 77. For the director of music, for Jeduthun of Asaph, a psalm. I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and my soul refused to be comforted. I remembered you, O God, and I groaned. I mused, and my spirit grew faint. Selah. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. So he was up all night, tossing and turning, thinking about his distress. I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart mused and my spirit inquired. So he remembered the good old days, I think, when he sang to God in the night. He's not doing that now, or at least he's singing a different kind of song. My heart mused and my spirit inquired, will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? Selah. Then I thought, to this I will appeal. The years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will meditate on all your works and consider all your mighty deeds. Your ways, O God, are holy. What God is so great as our God? You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. With your mighty arm you redeemed your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. Selah. The waters saw you, O God. The waters saw you and writhed. The very depths were convulsed. That's way down below, apparently. The clouds poured down water. The skies resounded with thunder. Your arrows, that be lightning, flashed back and forth. Your thunder was heard in the whirlwind. Your lightning lit up the world. The earth trembled and quaked. Your path led through the sea. Your way to the mighty waters, though your footprints were not seen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. Psalm 78, a maskil of Asaph. This is a long one. This is a biggie. O my people, hear my teaching. Listen to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter hidden things, things from of old. What we have heard and known, what our fathers have told us, we will not hide these things from their children. We will tell the next generation. The praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power and the wonders he has done. He decreed because if the next generation isn't told these things, how are they going to know? They weren't there to see it. That generation was there to see it. They weren't asked to operate solely by faith because they saw it. It was their responsibility to pass it on to their children. Those children were asked to live by faith, based on the testimony they received from their fathers. He decreed statutes for Jacob and established the law in Israel, which he commanded our forefathers to teach their children, so the next generation would know them, even the children yet to be born, and they, in turn, would tell their children. Then they would put their trust in God, and would not forget his deeds, but would keep his commands. They would not be like their forefathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, whose hearts were not loyal to God, whose spirits were not faithful to him. The men of Ephraim, though armed with bows, turned back on the day of battle. They did not keep God's covenant and refused to live by his law. They forgot what he had done, the wonders he had shown them. He did miracles in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the region of Zon. That's where the capital city of Egypt was at the time the Israelites left it. Now, I don't know if the reference to Ephraim here is a specific reference to an individual incident that occurred that is recorded for us in the Old Testament, or if it's a general statement referring to the north. The northern kingdom is often referred to singularly as Ephraim. It was more than just Ephraim, but Ephraim became the dominant tribe of the northern kingdom. And in the prophets, Ephraim is often singled out and used to identify the entire northern kingdom. So I don't know if this is a reference to the specific tribe of Ephraim abstaining from battle at a certain point in time, which we read about maybe in the Old Testament, or if this is a reference to the entire northern kingdom turning away from the southern kingdom where the temple and the kingship were. I don't know. At any rate, the people of God, or at least a part of them, turned their backs in the day when it mattered, and forgot what God had done for them. He guided them with the cloud by day, and with light from the fire all night. He split the rocks in the desert, and gave them water as abundant as the seas. He brought streams out of a rocky crag, and made water flow down like rivers. But they continue to sin against him, rebelling in the desert against the Most High. They willfully put God to the test by demanding the food they craved. They spoke against God, saying, "Can God spread a table in the desert?" When he struck the rock, water gushed out, and streams flowed abundantly. But can he also give us food? Can he supply meat for his people? All they were having was bread. They wanted meat too. When the Lord heard them, he was very angry. His fire broke out against Jacob, and his wrath rose against Israel. But they did not believe in God, or trust in his deliverance. Yet he gave a command to the skies above, and opened the doors of the heavens. He rained down manna for the people to eat. He gave them the grain of heaven. Men ate the bread of angels. He sent them all the food they could eat. He let loose the east wind from the heavens, and let forth the south wind by his power. He rained down meat on them like dust, flying birds like sand of the seashore. That's what they wanted, so that's what he gave them. After the quail comes in. He made them camp down inside their camp, made them, the birds, come down inside their camp, the Israelites' camp, all around their tents. They ate till they had more than enough, for he had given them what they craved. But before they turned to the food they craved, even while it was still in their mouths, the Old Testament, when it recounts this event in Numbers, even says it was while it was still between their teeth. They were still chewing on it. God's anger rose against them. He put to death the sturdiest among them, cutting down the young men of Israel. In spite of all this, they kept on sinning. In spite of his wonders, they did not believe. So he ended their days in futility, and their years in terror. Whenever God slew them, they would seek him. They eagerly turned to him again. They remembered that God was their rock. The God Most High was their Redeemer. But then they would flatter him with their mouths, lying to him with their tongues. Their hearts were not loyal to him. They were not faithful to his covenant. So they would remember what God did. They knew that. They were not ignorant of that. They did hear the lessons, okay? The generations did pass these stories down. We even have them to this day. So that's what this is. There's a written record of it. So they weren't ignorant of that. They did know that. And they remembered that. When they needed help, they remembered that. They remembered that God had helped them in the past. So they would turn to him and they would speak to him and ask for help and make all these grand promises that they had no intentions of keeping. It was all flattery. It was all a deception, or trying to deceive God. They were praying to him. They were beseeching him for help, asking him to save them, and he would do it. Most of the time, he would finally do it, even though he might let them suffer for a while. He would get around to saving them. But it was really just flattery. It was really just talk. Yes, they remembered. Yes, they knew. Yes, they remembered. Yes, they apologized and repented and confessed and said, forgive us, God, and help us. They would do all that, but they didn't really mean it. They were insincere. From the inside out, they were insincere. It was essentially just flattery. They were lying to God, trying to get him to help them. Yet he was merciful. He forgave their iniquities and did not destroy them. Time after time, he restrained his anger and did not stir up his full wrath. He remembered that they were but flesh, a passing breeze that does not return. So he did save them, even though he knew they were lying to him. He did actually grant them what they wanted, most of the time. And he would do it on his own terms, not theirs. But he did save them. Because in the end, you and I, and those people back then, and us today, are just a breath of vapor. We're here and then gone. Just like that, we're history. How often they rebelled against him in the desert, and grieved him in the wasteland. Again and again, they put God to the test. They vexed the Holy One of Israel. They did not remember his power, the day he redeemed them from the oppressor, the day he displayed his miraculous signs in Egypt, his wonders in the region of Zone. He turned their rivers to blood. They could not drink from their streams. He sent swarms of flies that devoured them, and frogs that devastated them. He gave their crops to the grasshopper, their produce to the locust. He destroyed their vines with hail, and their sycamore figs with sleet. He gave over their cattle to the hail, their livestock to bolts of lightning. He unleashed against them his hot anger, his wrath, indignation, and hostility, a band of destroying angels. He prepared a path for his anger. He did not spare them from death, but gave them over to the plague. One of the cats is out and about now. He struck down all the firstborn of Egypt, the first fruits of manhood, in the tents of Ham. Ham was the progenitor of Egypt. The actual founder of Egypt, apparently, a guy named Mizraim, was one of the descendants of Ham. But he brought his people out like a flock. He led them like sheep to the desert. He guided them safely, so they were unafraid, but the sea engulfed their enemies. Thus he brought them to the border of his holy land, to the hill country his right hand had taken. He drove out nations before them, and allotted their lands to them as an inheritance. He settled the tribes of Israel in their homes. But they put their God to the test, and rebelled against the Most High. They did not keep his statutes. Like their fathers, they were disloyal and faithless, as unreliable as a faulty bow. They angered him with their high places. They aroused his jealousy with their idols. When God heard them, he was very angry. He rejected Israel completely. He abandoned the tabernacle at Shiloh, the tent he had set up among men. This could be a reference to what the Ephraim comment was referring to earlier or not, I don't know. Remember, the tabernacle was originally set up in a place called Shiloh, and that was apparently destroyed. We don't really get a clear account of what happened at Shiloh, or what happened to that tabernacle. It was eventually, the Ark of the Covenant was eventually captured by the Philistines. But exactly what happened to the tabernacle is never really stated. He abandoned the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent he had set up among men. He sent the ark of his might into captivity, his splendor into the hands of the enemy. He gave his people over to the sword. He was very angry with his inheritance. Fire consumed their young men, and their maidens had no wedding songs because they had no young men to marry. Their priests were put to the sword, and their widows could not weep. So the men were killed, and the women were left alone. They were left without husbands, without fathers. Then the Lord awoke as from sleep, as a man awakes in the stupor of wine. He beat back his enemies. He put them to... That doesn't mean God was asleep or drunk. It just means he's jumping to action now, whereas he previously had not. He had deliberately refrained. And then he did his act again. He beat back his enemies. He put them to everlasting shame. Then, so he got his revenge. He got his justice. He reestablished his honor and reputation amongst the people of the world. And then he rejected the tent of Joseph. He did not choose the tribe of Ephraim, which is where the tabernacle had been. But he chose the tribe of Judah, Mount Zion, which he loved. He built his sanctuary like the heights, like the earth that he established forever. He chose David his servant and took him from the sheep posts. From tending the sheep, he brought him to be the shepherd of his people Jacob, of Israel his inheritance. And David shepherded them with integrity of heart. With skillful hands he led them. That seems like there should be more to the song than that, but that's the end. One more for this video. Psalm 79, a psalm of Asaph. O God, the nations have invaded your inheritance. They have defiled your holy temple. They have reduced Jerusalem to rubble. So this is clearly an exile song. No doubt about this one. Most of these are, even the ones like we just read, which may not be referring to the exile itself, you can see as being kind of like a recap of the problems that led to the exile. Even Psalm 78 doesn't talk about the exile itself. It goes up to David and then stops. But you can see how this would fit into a portion of the Psalms that is devoted to remembering the exile and what led to it. Because the attitudes of the people as they are expressed in Psalm 78 is what ultimately led to the exile itself hundreds of years after David. Those attitudes were never corrected from the time of their entry into the land and following, and that ultimately led to the exile. So even with a psalm like 78, which isn't about the exile itself per se, fits into this part of the script, part of the book, which is about the exile, because it calls to mind the attitudes and actions that led to the exile. Anyway, Psalm 79, a psalm of Asaph. O God, the nations have invaded your inheritance. They have defiled your holy temple. They have reduced Jerusalem to rubble. They have given the dead bodies of your servants as food to the birds of the air, the flesh of your saints to the beasts of the earth. They have poured out blood like water all around Jerusalem, and there is no one to bury the dead. We read about that in Lamentations and in Jeremiah and other places as well. We are objects of reproach to our neighbors, of scorn and derision to those around us. How long, O Lord? Will you be angry forever? How long will your jealousy burn like fire? Pour out your wrath on the nations that do not acknowledge you, on the kingdoms that do not call on your name. So don't destroy us. It's like, we're your people, God. Destroy the people who don't acknowledge you, who don't call on your name. For they have devoured Jacob and destroyed his homeland. Do not hold against us the sins of our fathers. May your mercy come quickly to meet us, for we are in desperate need. Well, if people continue the sins of the fathers, they are going to have that. We just got done reading about how the generation to generation continue making the same mistakes. It is true that you're not punished for your father's mistakes, your father's sin. You can be affected by them, though. You may not be punished for somebody else's sins, but that doesn't mean that their sins won't have consequences for you. And on the flip side, your sins can have negative consequences for somebody else. Okay, they may not be punished for your sins, just like you're not punished for their sins. But that doesn't mean that the consequences of those sins don't affect other people. They do. However, if you're continuing the same sins as your fathers, yes, you are going to be held to account for that. And that's what Psalm 78 was about. So do not hold against us the sins of our fathers. May your mercy come quickly to meet us, for we are in desperate need. Help us, O God our Savior, for the glory of your name. Deliver us and forgive our sins for your name's sake. Why should the nations say, where is their God? Before our eyes, make known among the nations that you avenge the outpoured blood of your servants. May the groans of the prisoners come before you. By the strength of your arm, preserve those condemned to die. Pay back into the laps of our neighbors 7 times the reproach they have hurled at you, O Lord. Then we, your people, the sheep of your pasture, will praise you forever. From generation to generation, we will recount your praise. So he wants God to act. First and foremost, for his own name's sake. Yes, he wants God to save him and the rest of the people. He wants God to do it for the sake of God's own name and reputation. Because when the people of God, even if they've been acting unfaithfully, which the people here have been, even if they actually deserve punishment, which the people at this time did, when they suffer in the sight of the enemy nations around them, that actually besmirches the name of God. So the psalmist is saying, God, fix this problem. Save us for your name's sake. And he's calling on God to do it. He's not doing it himself. He's not taking up arms and leading a contingent of Israelites into battle himself. He's calling upon God to take action to restore his people for the sake of God's own name and reputation. And that's where the attitude should be. It shouldn't be about God helping us because we want to be helped, as much as God helping us so that God's own name and reputation can be restored in the sight of those who have besmirched it and mocked it.